Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, flying solo. So the Warriors, your Golden State Warriors, are now on a 4-game winning streak after winning their 4th straight game at home, 118-112 over the Portland Trailblazers in a game that ended up being extremely exciting at the end. It started off with the Warriors, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole shooting extremely well in the first quarter. And it was like, oh, wow, these guys are starting hot and they're taking it to them. They got up by 18. Personally, though, like my big worry was, are they going to kind of let the rope slip? It's a team that, as it is right now, isn't super used to winning a bunch of games. And after a few really tight games, like you felt that maybe with this kind of lead that, NBA is a game of runs, and you knew that the Blazers would come at them, and Dame Lillard is Dame Lillard, and the Blazers have talent. So, considering it was so early, I was like, okay, let's see how the Warriors manage this lead, because part of learning how to win is kind of also learning how to win in different situations, right? Whether you're down, whether you're up big or up a little, stuff like that. So this was one of those moments, and I'm impressed. I'm really impressed, because once the Blazers got the lead, it felt like, okay, the Warriors are having trouble getting over the hump. I didn't think necessarily that they couldn't do it per se, but it was like, all right, they've cooled off a little bit, and where's it going to come from again, right? Like that's kind of been the theme, as I've talked about with Steph and Wiggins out, who is going to step up, because you're living and dying with Poole and Klay, but when they get cold at the same time, it's like, okay, what next, right? And the Warriors, they honestly, if you watch the game, they felt a little listless, a little lifeless. They weren't playing with that kind of immediacy and that energy. And, it was like, okay, can they flip that switch? And you know what? They did. Kerr went with a closing lineup of Draymond Green, Donte DiVincenzo, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, and Klay Thompson, right? Like I talked about recently how Jonathan Kuminga is definitely going to be in the running for that 5th spot in the closing lineup for Steve Kerr, because you have Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond when healthy, and it's either going to be Poole or Kuminga. And even in some cases, you might get Donte DiVincenzo in there. So to me, just having those guys in the closing lineup in a tight game is good, because you're building that up. And in my opinion, each and every second, every minute you get with these other guys, these bench dudes who I've said, like Kuminga and Donte DiVincenzo, are your 7 and 8 guys in the rotation, right? These reps are hugely important for them right now into the future. So anytime you can get them meaningful minutes in these game situations, that's a win, because, Donte DiVincenzo's been there, but not with this team, right? And he also was injured for a lot of last season. So getting him in for that. And then Jonathan Kuminga, we all know his story. So every rep he gets in those game situations is huge, and it's going to pay dividends down the road. And they just locked down. They locked down on defense. I find that to be a really interesting lineup, because you have offense, you have shooting with Poole and Klay, and to some degree Donte DiVincenzo, and you have defense with Draymond, Jonathan Kuminga, Donte DiVincenzo, and also Klay, right? So it's not a bad closing lineup, to be honest. And they executed. That's all you can say. They flipped the switch, and they were able to just basically lock down Portland. That steal that Donte DiVincenzo had on Dame Lillard, where Dame had it at the top of the arc, left side of the arc, and he was just holding it, and DiVincenzo reached in and just popped it out and got the steal. Throughout the season, and even especially recently, if you've listened to this podcast, I've talked about how Donte DiVincenzo is so critical to this team. I've talked about how his absence with that bad hamstring the first couple of weeks of the season was a very underrated absence because he needed to build chemistry with the team. He had some chemistry with guys like Wiseman and some of the other young guys from playing pickup during the summer. And he's a veteran presence, right? Like when he came back, I was like, he's going to help Jordan Poole a lot because he can take the ball out of Poole's hands. He can play both guard spots. He can shoot. He can rebound. He can defend. He can play on ball, right? And in this one, he played excellent defense. Throughout the game, Jonathan Kuminga, whenever he picked up Damian Lillard, he had some problems, right? Because I was texting my buddy Aram in Toronto and I was like, yo, JK's having trouble with Dame. And he's like, yeah, when you play John Morant, you can kind of back off him for the three. But Dame, he's a different beast, right? He's a veteran in his early 30s, an all-timer, and his shot is unquestionable from three. And so you have to guard up on him, and Dame could just get by Kuminga pretty easily. And, that's something that Kuminga will have to learn from, right? Because when you get to some of these smaller guards that he has to guard sometimes, guys like Damian Lillard are very, very unique, right? Because he's a vet with the ability to get to the basket and score at all three levels. And you have to obviously honor his three-pointer. So that's something that in a game like this, like Kuminga gets those reps and he's going to learn from that and figure out with the coaches, with some of the other veteran players, what he could do better and what went wrong, how he can better guard a guy like Dame, use his size, his length, his physicality in some respects. But like I said, at the end of the game, Donte DiVincenzo was picking him up and he did a great job. I've said that even though Donte DiVincenzo doesn't have the explosiveness of Gary Payton II or the wingspan, he definitely has some athleticism. You've seen it. He had 9 boards. I mean, his line tonight, 34 minutes, 4 for 11, only 1 for 5 from 3, but 9 boards, 4 assists, 4 steals, 9 points, plus 16 on the night. Like that is an amazing stat line to have in this one. And like I said in the last episodes, like I'm not knocking Gary Payton II, but once we lost him and then Bob Myers scooped up Donte DiVincenzo, who was, like I said, injured for a lot last season, so he was able to kind of get him on the cheap. I was like, dude, that guy's good. That guy is legit good. He's a legit good third guard spot starter, like we've been seeing, but a legit third guard, and basically he's the fourth guard on this Warriors team. So he impressed, and again, not knocking what Gary Payton did for the Warriors last season, but again, he hasn't played for the Blazers this season. So if you wanted to be saddled with that for this year, then that would have been the case. But Donte DiVincenzo is a guard, is a point guard and a shooting guard, and he can do so much more in terms of initiating the offense and passing and all that jazz, right? Like I mentioned before, Peyton did a lot of just like cutting back door, dunker spot stuff. They played him like a big dude, right? They played him like a center or like Andre Iguodala running in from the corner. So love Donte DiVincenzo, and I just think that again, it's great to see him flourish and get these opportunities, right? These are the kinds of things I'm talking about when if Steph is out, other guys have to step up, and they're clearly coming into their own. It's great that they're at home. This would be a lot tougher, as we saw, on the road, but just getting that crowd behind them and getting these like confidence building wins that not only build that confidence, but get you above 500, right? Now they're 19 and 18. And that just feels really, really nice to say after that last road trip where they were 1-5 and everybody was like freaking out. So, excellent game from Donte DiVincenzo. I think people are starting to realize how good he is and how important he is, right? And I love it, I love it. Like, and it's weird because you're seeing, at least in the first half when the Warriors are rolling, you could kind of see like this chemistry with Jordan Poole and Donte DiVincenzo and even Ty Jerome, those guys mixed in together. And, like I'm kind of a Ty Jerome convert a little bit. I mean, basically right now he's like the fifth guard. He's ahead, of course, of Moses Moody. And I went back and watched some of his highlights from UVA, University of Virginia, when he was in the tournament. And the dude is solid, right? His floater game, like I mentioned before, is nice, and he knows how to play. So he is, not bad. I do not mind seeing him on the court right now, but we'll see how this keeps going. And it was cool to see Ty Jerome hit that buzzer beater three. I mean, he had a big smile on his face, and the team was really happy for him. And he just looked happy to have made that. So you like to see that that joy on some of these guys' faces, especially now that they're winning some games. Kuminga, like I mentioned before, he was kind of having a rough defensive game. He was getting called for some early fouls. He got called for a couple rip throughs, and I'm like, oh man, come on. The first one, it's like, okay. The second one is like, oh, dude, you're just leaving yourself open for that. But what I like about Kuminga, and as I've said about him over the past month or so, it's like he's trying to make winning plays, right? Like he didn't pout. He didn't like get on himself. He came back into that closing lineup, and it was like, think about it. Beginning of the season or last season, he's probably going to be in his head, and he might mess up or try to do too much. But in this one, he's moving the ball. He knows what to do. He's playing solid defense, and he's very active on both ends, and he's trying to win the game. And he made winning plays. Great plays on defense, great plays rebounding. Had that awesome, amazing breakaway dunk, and those are the things you're expecting from him when you see him on the court nowadays. Like you expect him to do all these little things. And I mean, he gets it, right? Like he looks like a winning player, like a Warriors winning player. And I think that's another reason to feel very confident about this team in a month after Steph gets back, going into the springtime. So these are all positive signs. Yes, they're 19-18 only, but if you've been following this team all season long, you know where they've been. And they have to prove it on the road for sure. But they've gone 4-0 at home. They have 4 more left. And I said a couple of games ago, it's like, wow, if these guys go 8-0, again, getting ahead of myself there and just entertaining the idea just for fun. But if they go 8-0, they'll be like 5 games over, and that would put them like right in the thick of the non-play-in playoff race, like in the top 6. So these are all positives. And I was going to say, even if they had lost this game, like that, the fact that they came back and fought, that to me is huge, because we know guys like Draymond and Clay are going to keep pushing, but to have the other guys, the new guys, make the effort and not give up and be determined to win the game, that, I mean, to me, those are the lessons that I've been talking about for the whole season, but then also since Steph got out the game, right? When Steph got injured, right, it was like, oh man, we're going on a tough road trip. It's going to be brutal. And it was, but it was like, get your reps in, take advantage of your court time, earn your minutes, all that jazz. And then now that they're here, it's like, learn how to win a game, learn how to have a big lead, kind of feel yourself a little bit, right? That's kind of what it felt like. Like, oh, this team has been through a few good wins, and it's like, oh yeah, we're here, we've arrived. Let's just roll through this one. But like, learn that that's not the case, and that you have to play the whole game against any NBA team, because they're going to keep coming at you, especially with a guy like Dame. And that you can have a lead like that up by 17, 18 or whatever, getting the hole by like 11, and then still close it out, right? That's huge. Jonathan Kuminga having an iffy game early on, but then locking it down at the end. I mean, his line, 26 minutes, 4 for 8 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 1 for 2 from the line, 2 boards only, 5 assists, plus 15 on the night, 9 points, right? I'll take that. So he had 5 fouls, which epitomizes how rough the rest of his night was. But the fact that he came back and closed it, that's huge to me. That's confidence, right? I always mention he's a little bit cocky in a good way, but that's confidence. And that's a guy who is not afraid. I mean, we've seen him for a year and a half now. He's never been afraid, and he wants to win. So that's exactly what you want to see from that kind of dude. Jordan Poole, man, he was so like hot at the very beginning, but then in the second quarter, he kind of went cold, had a couple really bad turnovers. And I always joke that like with Poole, he's so high variance. And he actually had one of those turnovers at the end of the game where he tried like a drop step pivot move that worked really well in the previous game, but he lost the ball, went out of bounds, turnover. Didn't matter, but like, he's only 23, going on 24. So these are things that I accept from Poole because he needs to keep pushing the issue. He needs to be the guy that initiates. I had no idea that you had 41 points, right? You get 36 minutes, 14 for 23. I mean, that's great shooting right there. 5 for 10 from 3, 8 for 9 from the line, 5 points, 6 assists. The 7 turnovers, though, right? That's what you want to clean up. Much like Steph, like a guy like Poole with the ball in his hands a lot, who does a lot of stuff to create shots. Yes, they're going to have turnovers, but 7 is a lot. He was plus 18 with 41 points, but like, I'm not going to nitpick his game, but to me, it's like he giveth, he taketh away, and then he giveth again, right? Pretty soon, hopefully he's just more giveth. And, you love to see it. I talked about how I was curious to see how the matchup with him and Anthony Simons would be, because Simons is a very good young guard for the Blazers. And he had also signed a contract extension, which when he signed that, people talked about that in terms of like, oh, that sets the bar for Poole. Poole's bar went higher with the Tyler Hero signing at the beginning of the year. But, they're both really, really fun guards to watch. And clearly Poole had the bigger game, came out with a win, and the better, more impressive line on the night. But, again, love to see all this stuff, seeing this team without Steph, without Wiggins, and just grow. I mean, this is what we've been wanting this whole time. And so I'm extremely pleased with this. You know what I mean? Like, this is a great way to end off 2022, the final game of the calendar year. And, just think about this, let's envision this team with Steph, with Wiggins, and then you're bringing in Kuminga, and then you're bringing in Donte DiVincenzo, just the confidence they have on this team. And in these situations, it's huge. This is going to be great when, the top guy is getting foul trouble. Say Draymond fouls out, say Steph fouls out or something. Having DiVincenzo, having Kuminga, that's going to be really, really, really important down the road. Draymond Green, shout out to that dude. He's been steady and solid as hell during this homestand. He's been amazing on defense. He had a couple great blocks in the previous game. And in this one, 33 minutes, 4 for 11 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, 11 boards, 4 assists, 1 steal, plus 8, 10 points. He was big in this one, and you don't want to take, I always talk about, you don't want to take Steph for granted. You don't want to take Draymond for granted either. You know what I mean? He's been amazing. And even in this one, his moxie, his fire is what propels this team. You know what I mean? Like I said, they were kind of flat a little bit, but I guarantee you it was Draymond who brought the energy and made some big plays that inspire the team, that get them going, that get them hyped. And, you just love to see that. And you love to see this team rally around each other. And hopefully the stuff with Draymond and Jordan Poole, that looks like it's all, gone and away. So that's enough of that for now until there's a reason to actually talk about it. James Wiseman, he hurt himself in a 3-on-3 scrimmage earlier today. They were playing with Wiggins to try to get Wiggins up into game shape, and he rolled his ankle. And I was bummed because for the Blazers, Nurkic was out, and the rest of the bigs for the Blazers are the kinds of bigs that James Wiseman has played pretty well against, has feasted on, kind of guys who are like 6'9", 6'10", skinny, and Wiseman has played well against those dudes. And I felt like Wiseman could have done really well against some of these dudes. And also, my buddy Aaron in Toronto mentioned like He might have gotten cooked by Simons and Lillard, but I'm like, that's fine. He needs to see that. He needs to get reps, just like Kuminga needs to get reps against guys like Lillard. You know what I mean? So it's a shame. Hopefully it's only like a game or two. That's what they're saying. But it sucks because every time it feels like this is like the fourth or fifth time in Wiseman's career when he's gotten into a bit of a rhythm and he's shown that what he could be, he gets hurt. This one is far less serious than anything else, knock on wood. But hopefully he gets back soon because, JaMychal Green is still out. And as you all know, I'm really, really pushing for Wiseman, hopefully, to get those reps and to show those minutes where he can be a net positive or at least like just solid and basically jump JaMychal Green on the depth chart in the rotation. It may not happen right now. It may happen later on. Fingers crossed that it just does happen down the road. Again, that's speaking from me, who is a James Wiseman fan from the very start. Up next, the Warriors get Atlanta at home on Monday, the 2nd. Then they get Detroit on Wednesday, the 4th, Orlando on the 7th, which is a Saturday, and then Phoenix January 10th on a Tuesday. So, these are teams that they can beat at home, and hopefully they continue this rise up the standings a little bit. Right now, they are sitting at 9th in the West. So, hey, that's not bad. They're 1.5 out of the 6th spot and 5 out of 1st. Can't be too mad about that right now, as long as they're playing well and moving it forward. So great win. And I guess that's the end of a very, very exciting, entertaining Golden State Warriors 2022 calendar year. I guess all I got to say now is enjoy this one and have a happy and safe new year. See you in 2023.